This is how to change the oil on a 2016 Corolla S Plus. This happens to be a manual transmission, but every single engine is the same except for the Eco. It is a different engine. I don't know, it's got like a 2 in it or an extra letter. Wikipedia would tell you. And it has, it's actually the engine they're probably going to be going to for the rest of the Corollas. It's 5 to 10% more efficient in fuel and has a few more horsepower. I think about the same torque. It's 140 horse versus, I think this is 136, and it's 128 foot-pounds of torque. But first thing you want to do is jack it up. And jack it up from this point right here. Put the jack right there. And if you don't want to scratch that, put some gloves on top of the jack and on there in between it. Here's your oil pan for the engine. There's your oil drain plug. And right here is the tool you're gonna need. And son of a bitch, is it stuck on here? This is the second one I've lost. Oh, nope, I actually got that off. On the 2011 Corolla that I have, it's stuck on there and I just left it on. I said forget it. But this is a 14 flute 64 millimeter oil filter wrench. I got this from AutoZone for $10, and I wrote on here, this is the torque specs for the engine oil cap, and then this is the torque specs for the engine oil drain plug to the oil pan. And so when you get this thing, it's not really machined that well, so you may end up taking a file to yours to clean it up some, especially on the inside. It makes it sit on there a whole lot better. But jack it up, and you want to place your jack stands right behind the wheel on the pinch weld, and then lower it and make sure that it's holding on both sides. And then once I do that, I remove the jack and then I put it under the cross member, the subframe. So once I have that, I open up the hood, pop the hood, pull the stick out a little bit, take the drain plug cap off, and this oil in this engine is 0W20 and it's synthetic, and the oil filter that you're going to be using, I'm changing the oil early. It's got less than 800 miles on it. I planned on doing it a lot sooner than that, but I wasn't able to do that. So here is the one, and like I said, I'm going to be changing it now. I'm going to change it again probably in another 1,500 miles. So I'm just using the cheap frames. Otherwise I'd be getting the more expensive frame maybe, or a better brand. I haven't decided, haven't researched enough to see exactly which filter is better. But this is what I'm going with today. And the oil, I always use Pennzoil. I used to use Castrol, and that's all I ever used because of how cheap it was. Then I started to look and see where the oil was from. And most of it was out of the United States. And, you know, one was BP, and ever since the oil spill, I don't support BP. I don't buy gas, I don't do anything with BP. So this one's Houston, Texas. It's America. So I always go Pennzoil from now on. So that's the oil. And it was 0W20. So I take this off. This. And for me, the socket that would fit over this was a 7/8. And I used a 1/2-inch drive. It's a long breaker bar, which you don't really need. Put that on there, crank that off. So I'll end up taking this off and letting it drain. I'll drain the engine oil first and then take that off, and I'll pause this and I'll show you exactly what it looks like. And there's going to be a rubber O-ring that you're going to replace that goes around it. Probably don't really need to replace this one because it only has less than 800 miles on it, but I think I'll replace it anyway and just save it. So I'll go ahead and pause the video and I'll bring it back and show you that, and then you just, you know, reverse order button it back up. That's some condensation coming from the catch pan and the evaporator inside the cabin. But once you put it all back together, this right here, the oil filter cap that you need the special tool for, is going to be 18 foot-pounds, and your oil drain plug here is going to be 27 foot-pounds. And that's it. Start it up. Make sure the engine oil light goes out, you know, and check it. This takes the amount of oil. That's the one thing I'm forgetting. Let me double check. I don't want to tell you something wrong, so let me go get that. Alright, so it takes 4.4 quarts. So pretty much 4.5, a little under. So over here is the quart. Here's 4, here's 4.5. I guess that's 4.5. I'm not too sure about that. 3, 4, 4. Huh. Well, I'm not really on level ground either, and that's pretty important. So what I do is I end up removing the oil from this and pouring it into another one that I have left over and bringing it down to a little bit below 4.5. And then once I do that, I just dump this whole bottle in, and then I check it. And if I'm over, I'll drain it from the bottom, but I'm usually not over. It's very hard to see this oil too because it is so clean and so thin, and it comes up the dipstick when you pull it out. So it's nice to have it when it's dirty, but I don't think I'm going to let this engine get dirty. I'm going to change this every 5,000 miles, even though it's synthetic, once I get on a good regiment. So it's going to be 800, another 1,500, put me at 2,300. I may change it at 5,000 then, and then just go every 5,000 after that. Not really too sure. But, so let me show you what it looks like when you pull out the oil filter. One thing I neglected to mention was the engine oil drain plug is a 14 millimeter. So you're going to be using that in order to take that off. And for some reason I got a bunch of noise going on around here. You're going to replace the O-ring on there, and the O-ring is right there. And to get at that, there's a little notch right. It's right there, actually. So you just put this hook behind it, and then you're gonna pull it out just like that, and then you pull it off. It's hard to do with one hand. There. So pull that off, and then discard it, replace it with a new one. Clean it out, paper towel. Maybe you want to put some mineral spirits or something in there and clean it out. Change out the filter, put the new one in, put the O-ring on, lubricate the O-ring with some oil, some new clean engine oil. Excuse me. Put this back in, tighten it down to 18 foot-pounds, 14 millimeter socket for the engine oil drain plug, and tighten that down to 27 foot-pounds. Put in 4.4 quarts of oil, and dump your old oil into one of your containers and dispose of it responsibly by taking it back to any of your auto parts stores. Pretty much take used oil and they'll dump it for free. So, and that's how you change the oil on a 2016 Toyota Corolla S Plus in this case, but all the engines are the same except for the Eco. And I hope this helps somebody. Enjoy your Corolla.